Hello, this is Christian. Okay, in this video, we're going to go and build the form for the chat. It's a really simple chat application. I'm not going to put any CSS to it. You can build that. You can add if you're going to, make it more beautiful if you want to, but I'm just going to do the functionality for now. So here, I'm going to expand this all the way. You can have more space. Inside the index file in the chat folder, we're going to add a simple form here. And then we're going to add a very simple just input box ID. We'll call it the actual message. And here is where you put the data input. And then we have a button. And then this is just say send when you do a chat, right? Okay, just very simple like that. And then right below here is something that we also want to put. You can put it into a different, location if you want. Maybe you can even do something like this. Let's see, div output style here for float left. Okay, I'll float this to a left, and then I'll put here another div, and then inside here you should put the message, maybe like all the UL, and I'll put ID here, so we'll match it. We'll target this ID. This is what the target message. Okay, I'll put target here for now. You can call it message if you want. Maybe we should call it messages, right? All the messages will go here. Okay, so just to kind of like give a width of 300 px, we'll give a solid border 1 px solid black. Okay, so that's that. I'll copy this and add to the bottom as well. This is going to be on the float right. So. And then I guess same thing. We'll see what it looks like. And all right, I'm going to go into the browser and see what that looks like. Okay, so we have a little chat here. I'm going to do it. Okay, so here's the thing. And I want to do some messages here. I click send, and then it's going to show the message back here again on the chat screen. Okay, not ideal. Of course, you can modify this. Maybe I should remove that border. Doesn't look good here. Okay, save, reload. Do I do something? Oh, I removed the wrong one. Oops. Leave that. Okay, so I want to chat something, and this box is going to grow. You can make it grow. You can make it fixed. Maybe you put like 500 px, and then we'll also add, overflow to auto. Let's see if that's the correct one. Okay. Ooh, that's pretty tiny. You know what? I'm going to make it simple. We'll leave that for now. Okay, so that's the chat window. And then on the left side, when we chat something, we need to send the data over to the other side. Okay, that means we need to go in here, write a code. And the code is to basically, when we click the submit button, the send button, it's going to invoke this form to send the index or the ID. I mean, there's lots of ways. This is just one way to do it. You don't have to call the form if you don't want to. You just, create a event listener for the button, and then that will invoke add the message, and the message will send that data over. But only thing is, if you click the button, if you can see here, if I do this, you'll see that it reloads the page. You see all this flashing on the top? See that? Okay. It reloads the page because of the form. Now, when you do that, then it would trigger a page reload, and when the page reloads, you lost all the data. So it may not be ideal to input in the form. You can just put like a very simple div tag if you want, so it doesn't reload the page. And then you put the button here and attach that to an event listener. Okay, but since I'm using the form, then we have to take care of that form, make sure it doesn't load. That means we have to use something called the prevent default to actually forcing the form to reload. So we have to do that first. So I'm going to go here and do a document dot forms So form is one of the objects that's readily available for you to use without even targeting the actual form. If there are like 10 forms, you just have to know which one is it. It's always an array of forms. So the first one is the 0 index, right? And if you want to do that, if you can also have an ID, that's okay too. You can say ID, my form, and target that my form if you want using the query selector or get element by ID. But since I'm using forms, I know exactly there's only one form. I'm just going to use the index 0. Okay, and then I'm going to add the event listener. Here, I'm going to do this all in one line because I'm not going to use the form again. If you want to use form again for later in the code, then you want to attach this to a variable. Otherwise, just use it once. So that's all I need. Listener, I'm listening to a submit event. Okay, when you click the button, it submits it. So you listen to the event. When that happens, then you're going to call a function. You can use a standard function or the anonymous function here, and usually you pass an event. I'm just calling it EV for short. And then we want to prevent that from happening. So prevent default. You call that function so that it won't load. Okay, so if I save that file, go back here and reload. Okay, when you click it, you see that it's no longer refreshing, right? The page doesn't refresh anymore like before, and that's what we want. So when you click that, it triggers a page reload, but we turn that off here, so that's good. And then when that happens, then we can go ahead and then target this tag and get the data and send it over back to the server. Okay, so we got that there. And then go ahead and then we can say let the data is equal to the document, maybe not data, just like input equal to the document that not format get element by ID, and the ID is MSG, right? That's the tag, input tag. Here, we're targeting that. And then I'm going to do a function called, this is sending to the server side. Okay, there's a function called emit. So I'm going to pass it through this socket object here. So I'm going to say socket.emit. And this function you can use to send data back and forth between the server and the front side. If I send data going from this side to the server, and the server can send the same thing back to the front client side. Okay, so through this function called emit. And this emit function has a few parameters, but the two that we need are basically the message, no, the channel that you're going to send the data to and from, right? So in this case, we're going to have something called, I just call it my chat. Okay, that's this single socket called my chat. And this is very unique. Okay, this has to be a unique channel. Usually you can give it ID or something very unique, so that in the back end you have to send the message back to the same socket, otherwise it won't work. Okay, so it's called my chat, and then I have a function here. This is going to be the message coming from the client side. Okay, so the message is coming from this input data element. So you could do something like input.value. I'm going to grab the input value and send that over to the client side, server side, I'm sorry. So down here. And I think this is not efficient to do that. I mean, it is this message, okay? But you want to no, I think that's it. That's all we need to do. Basically, we just need to send that message over. This is the emit is, sorry, it's incorrect. Doesn't look right. That's if you want to respond. Let me do it differently. It's just like that, basically. The actual message, which is the input.value. Okay, we send that message over. I think that's all you have to do here. And then once we send the message over, we can go ahead and clear the input. And this is why I left the input up here as pointing as reference. It's a reference to the input tag. If you just grab the data, then it's okay. If you do that, you can't clear it. So I'm going to go ahead and clear that input box so it's empty, right? So in other words, if I do that, if I go back here, refresh it. If I touch something, right, it clears it. If you don't do that, it's gonna stick around. Okay, so it sends a message back to the server through this socket called my chat, and this is the data. Now the data can be a string like this, or it can be an object. This is the difference between Ajax and the socket, the WebSocket. If you know, in Ajax, in JSON, you only send string data over, right? You cannot send object. And WebSocket, you can send both. So that means you can send object. Well, object can be anything, right? An image, or you see those emojis all the time, right? So you're able to do that. So this is just a plain text. And I do the plain text first, and then I send that over to the front, to the back end. In the back here, we need to receive that message as well. So, and then when that message comes back to the client server side, we need to respond, right? You get the message, and then receive the message. So in here, inside the I/O as well, inside the connection here, when it's connected, I'm going to do another one that says socket on, and this is the chat name. I call it my chat, right? The socket name. So it has to match. If it doesn't match, it does not know where to get the message from. Okay? On this socket, I'm going to load a function, and the function receives the data. This data can be in the message variable, or any variable you want to call it. It doesn't matter. And this MSG here receives exactly this message from the user side. Okay, so I can now receive the message, and just to make sure we do have it, I'm just going to print it to the console, the actual message itself. Okay, so let's save that, and hopefully I haven't tested it, so make sure it works. So let's Control C to cancel that, and then run it again one more time. So make sure there are no errors. And I'm going to go and load the browser. So refresh. Okay. It's not working. Something is wrong here, I think. Probably a typo. Yeah, unexpected token at line 31. So as you can see, there's an error. 31. That one there, and then I don't need that one actually. It's a typo. Okay, save that, and let's try again on the front side. Okay, so now we're good to go. All right, so it's responding on the server side, a user connected. Now if I type in something, test, okay, you see that the message comes through to the server side now. Okay, so now we can do a little chat. I can have another window here, and again, I duplicate that. I have two chat screens, and on the left side is somebody else, and the right side is somebody else, right? So you send something, it's the server receives it down here, okay? And then the other side also receives it as well. So you can see that now they're chatting. So the next thing is basically to have the server push these two data back to both channels, both users. If you have 10 users, they're all going to see it because they're on the same chat, okay? So let's do that. So once I receive the data, as you can see on this side, I just basically log it to the console. Instead of doing that, I can send it back to the user. And you can do that by doing the same thing, is by issuing the emit function again, right? Like you did before on the other side, and then send that back to the user. So right in here, and the set on, instead of printing the message, when I get the message in here, I'm going to send it back. And you do that not going through the socket.io, but go through the io.emit function. And then I'm going to go back to the same socket. And then here is where you would send the message back. So the same message is this same message here. I printed the console so I can see it, but I'm going to send it right back to the same user where they see it. Okay, so we got that taken care of. Now again, so it's like going back and forth, right? So you follow the same rule. The user sends a message to me, emit that to me, I receive it, I send it back to the user through the same channel, Now back here, I have to receive that. So what do? Okay, so on this side of thing, you have to then do something similar, right? Socket on the on channel called my chat. You want to go ahead and print that to the user side. Okay, so right down here somewhere, we're going to go and then write another function here in the script. And this time we need to target the UL here because we want to send a message to that location. So I'm going to go var UL is the document get element by ID call messages. I'm just targeting that UL, okay, right here. And then we're going to append all the messages in the form of the li tag and add that to the window. So now we can go ahead and then do a socket dot on what? On the same channel called my chat. That's where we receive that message from, right? And then we're going to go ahead and do a function. Look very similar to the other side. I can call it message again if you want. Different variable. That's completely up to you. No, I'm going to indent this a little bit over here. Okay, so when I got the message, then I need to go ahead and send that over to the li, append that. So we're going to do li equal to document. We're going to create that element. I will create it dynamically. There are other ways to do it. This is just one way. And li.html is going to be that message, which is the a message here. This message coming from this client server side, which is the same message up here basically, but it goes in circle, right? It makes a full circle back to where you're at again. And once I'm done with that, I'm going to append it to the UL. So I'll append child the li, and I think that should do it. Again, this got to match, okay? So let's save that. Make sure this is saved also. Let's go back and do it again. Hopefully no errors. I have two of them because I have two browsers, as you can see. One on the left, one on the right. And I'll put both there so you can kind of see what it looks like. Okay, so if I type something here on the right side, it didn't show up, so there's an error somewhere in the code. We'll check it out. But it does receive on the server side, so they both come through. Okay, so to see what that is, do console, and probably there's an error somewhere in here that didn't show up. So we'll take a look and see what's going on here. I don't see how that's could be an error. Just do one more time. Just save this again in control and then run it one more time. Okay, it should work, I think. But let me just refresh it, just make sure it has the correct things in there. Test. All right, so I don't know what happened there. Maybe I didn't. It's a caching issue. Okay, so that one's working on the other side as well. Let's turn that on, refresh it, make sure it's there. Okay, so we can say hi. Now you can see on both sides, the front and the back of the server as well. And so this is me, this is me, and there it is. So we can have a chat message going on between the two. Okay, so that's how you do it. Just to make sure that on the client side, you have a way to emit the chat and the message over to the server side. The server side receives the message through the on my chat. It looks very similar to these up here, right? You look at it. Okay, my chat, and then receives the message and it sends it back to the IO emit function. Just make sure that it goes to the correct channel. Now, if you have two of them here, you can, it's possible you can have two of them. That might have a different name. Okay, so one could be like, for example, you can hide one message only to a certain user or a certain location. Another very common one is to have it automated so that every 2 seconds, every other seconds or so, it can send some data over to the other side automatically. And we can try to do that in the next video.